Hello there. Before we begin, just a quick note. This interview and the others in this series were never initially meant to be released as full videos. I was sort of gathering sound bites for an upcoming, more polished video where the idea was to gather as many different voices from players, coaches, tournament organisers, and creators. And after filming a few, what I realised was that the interviews in full were too good not to just release in their entirety. So there's a little bit of light editing, and what you might notice is that in these first few, there's not quite as good a presentation style from myself. That's just because I wasn't really conceiving them to be released in this way. But post-edit Jerry is going to come in with some voiceovers to kind of tie it together at different points. So with that out of the way, I hope you enjoy. Starting off this series with a bang, I welcomed Appoh, one of the final's most popular and longest serving creators. Having coached Pulsar Blue to an 11th placed finish at the Grand Major 2025, he has recently turned his mouse and keyboard to competing as a player, forming Auntie's Goo Boys, a North American team comprised of Appoh himself, fellow creator and Goo Gun menace Ikazo, and ranked demon KD Killer. Their unique playstyle, revolving around off-meta chaos, cash-out manipulation, and layered defenses, has seen them recently shoot up the competitive food chain, giving even the most decorated professional teams a run for their money. Hot off the back of a disappointing exit from the Grand Final of Ape Squad Classics, in which they finished 4th following an impressive season and lower bracket run, I interviewed Appoh hoping to get his unique perspective on cash-out, format design, and the finals competitive ecosystem. First of all, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Appoh. I play on Auntie's Goo Boys with Akazo and KD. We're a relatively new team together. Akazo's played a little bit in the competitive scene. I used to be the main coach for Pulsar, so I haven't really dipped my toes too much into pro scene until recently, but it's been a blast.
Great. Okay. Now, warm-up questions I've got here, easier ones. Ignoring individual class balance, like weapons and gadgets, do you think that Cash Out is a balanced game mode?
I think cash out's always been a very hot topic, I think, within the competitive scene, of course. And I think it can be. I don't think that we've sort of like cracked a code on how to make it make sense. Some of the ones I've seen that made a little bit more sense was like a long series of continuously doing cash out and then consistent performance being rewarded. Made a lot of sense. When it came to you know, shorter form where it's like 2 games or 3 games, determining like a placement or something like that. Like we've seen some stuff like that in like the grand majors, especially like at the end of the grand majors. Some of those things kind of felt a little bit janky in a way, where it just kind of felt like the macro that you'd have to play catch show is completely different when the format is different versus something like ranked, where it's like just get top 2. When it's like first place that matters, then the macro is different. And then there's some macro where it's just about like you actually want to make sure the gap is as big as it can be, so you're intentionally griefing people. And we've also seen that in formats before, even like throughout the tournament. We've seen top teams when they're good, they're secure, they don't care about this game anymore. Let's just go grief out the team that is like the biggest threat and make sure that they can't make that top 6 spot or whatever spot. So it can work, but sometimes it doesn't, and I don't really know the right solution. But I think there's probably a world where it works.
That's a pretty interesting answer. You've hit on a lot of the other kind of sub questions I'll ask. So there might be some repetition, but I'll try. Maybe
Sure.
it's like about honing in on those points. So, do you have a format that you enjoyed the least, either as a player or as a viewer, when it comes to anything in the finals ecosystem, cash out or threes or wherever it might have been in a league or in a playoffs, or is there a least favorite one?
I think the final, like for example, like the apes, I think had the worst case of like a final like being cash out. So it basically like the top 4 teams are now competing, and then it's based on like points. But since there was only 3 games and 2 teams had a bit of a point advantage because they went through a winners bracket, And you have teams like Nightmare, which, I mean, we all know Nightmare is a phenomenal team, but they just happened to fail in the winners bracket, and then they made it through in losers bracket, and now they're at a disadvantage going into this, format. And that can be just based on, who you happen to face, especially in like a best of three. Maybe you just have one bad game, and that kind of can determine it all. I know
Yeah.
it's competitive, so that's bound to happen. People are bound to have bad games, but it feels really bad when you're looking at like the final bracket, and then in the Apes, it was like Nightmare and my team, we're the bottom two. So then the gap between second place and third place becomes so massive that the macro now becomes around griefing out and making sure that gap stays as big as it can versus giving anybody an inch. So that felt probably the worst, but
Yeah. So
I think for the
the issue with that then is the issue with that Ape Squads Classics finals that there was the upper bracket advantage. That's the kind of real sticking point for you.
I think that's part of it. I think it's like when you're looking at 3 cash out games to determine who makes it to the top 2, you're bound to have a lot of griefing, and just the macro is going to be completely different. Going into it with an advantage just sort of amplifies that sort of mentality. And I think when you look at like NA's macro versus EU's macro, like in EU we had Five Fears, was it? They were in the losers bracket, but they got first place, I think, in like the first game, or they got second place or something. But they put themselves on the board. Whereas in NA, it's like the bottom teams weren't really given much of a chance to do that. It was almost like, if you look at some of the play, that's like they're specifically keeping like the teams at the bottom down because we've done the math and we kind of understand it. The first game was like basically the thing that determined the entire the next 2 games.
Yeah.
Just based on like money wise. So once that first game went through, it was like a lot of us kind of knew, and then that's why you could see like Nightmare and my team. They made sure to keep us at the bottom too. Even though, like, I remember being confused. I was like, wait, wouldn't they want to let Nightmare or us steal some of these boxes so that, they could grief the other team that's technically higher? But then when I did the math, I was like, wait, no, that doesn't make sense, because then they would be giving us a chance to even be in the top 2,
Yeah.
which can then impact them. So it was just
they
very
played
weird.
They played it right. That's
They
the
did.
tournament.
They did.
Yeah.
And I was very confused at the moment because I'm so used to ranked cash out, where it's like, yeah, you want to grief out the better team. That makes sense. Or
Right.
in a format that we've talked about previously, when it's like this long series of gaining points, and then once you have so many points that you're safe, like you're in your top 3, top 6, whatever it means to qualify, you can totally go after those teams that are around that cusp of potentially losing, and then you focus and make sure they don't get in. Like, those kind of make sense to me in the macro, but this was like a new format where it didn't really make sense to me until after, and I did the math and I was like, oh wait, yeah, that's kind of shitty. That's not really good formatting.
It's interesting because we have, in the past, when we've experimented with formats like those where you throw cash out into a final 4, it's been stress tested, or at least there have been kind of public events that have done that for people to let people get their heads around, oh, the macro is different here, and we have to play it this way instead. But yeah, there were a few different elements of the Apes one that I think just added up to make it one of the most punishing, especially for you. And like you say, EMEA, it did reset the bracket. They all ended up on 8 points for the final map, which is really cool. But even then, the best case scenario is that you've now got an elimination cash out game, which is never ideal either. So if that was the best case scenario, then I think the design is a little bit flawed. But I'm gonna hone in on like 1 or 2 specific bits about cash out now. So these are the questions where I've talked specifically about like what I've called granulated cash out, which I sent you a little bit about. So where you have different wards for first, second, third, and fourth, as opposed to in normal cash out in an elimination bracket, say, or just in game, like in ranked. First and second are the same thing, by and large, and third and fourth are the same thing. You just have win or loss. So when I talk about granulated cash out, I'm talking about the esports version of the game where you have these points distributions, say like 10 points, 8 points, 4 points, 2 points, or whatever it was, multiples of 10. I think we use in PHL. So, some questions about granulated cash out. Do you think there is an additional level of skill expression, first of all, in a game of granulated cash out compared to normal cash out?
I mean, of course, there's like a skill expression and everything, but it's more like I think the main issue that I hear from people and that I experience is more just like the game doesn't flow as well as like a normal game of cash out when there is the incentive from other players. But like that incentive to grief out people or to you know, prevent a certain team from getting a certain position, that is a skill, right? Like you still have
Yeah.
to like achieve that goal. You can't just stand around and be like, this is what I want and it's going to happen. You still have to actively go after people, target them, kill them. Like it's still a skill to do that, and there's always a chance that the other teams can win. It's like even in the scenario of like the second game of Apes, like there was a chance that Nightmare or my team, we could have won. We could have definitely got first place. There was like options to do that. It's just the hurdle that we had to get over to get that is just harder when there is an incentive from two other teams to essentially prevent you from achieving that.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, skill is like always going to be there. It's just a little bit different, I guess.
Is it different better or different worse or just completely different? Do you think it's a better version of the game than you get in ranked?
It depends on the ranked, I guess, but that's that's a kind of variable because I mean there's still that experience that you get in ranked where people try and grief you out, and that's never a good feeling. But I think in a tournament, it's often like you understand it a little bit more. So it's like when you get griefed, it usually makes more logical sense versus, oh, this person's just targeting me and they're throwing their own game because they're just they hate rubies or whatever it may be. And we see it all the time with if I'm watching another streamer and just seeing some people just suicide grief somebody, it's not really it doesn't really make as much logical sense as in a tournament format where it's like, oh, there's probably some math that they've done where this actually makes logical sense.
Okay. Do you think the granulated cash out adds entertainment value?
I think it can, but I don't know. No matter what with cash out, there's always going to be those games where it just is kind of a wash. I mean, even the Fortune Stadium, I can't imagine that game was entertaining for anybody to watch. Maybe just as like a haha funny look at how stupid cash out can be, because you have people just forcing double boxes and then everyone just sort of like TDMing basically because it didn't matter at that point. Like money wise, or sorry, like points wise, it didn't really matter. No matter what, after that game, Retwist and Envy, we're going to go to the final. Like there was no mathematical world where Nightmare or AGB is going to be able to get second place. So for us, it was like Nightmare and us. We were basically just fighting for third place. But when the rest of the game is just everyone doubling boxes and goofing around, it doesn't really open up a lot of like skill in that sense to actually earn third place. It's just sort of like, well, let's just hope we don't get targeted as much or die as much as the other team. And it was just kind of, that's the way it is.
I'm glad I'm interviewing plenty of players because I know all of these answers are going to be very coloured by not just experience, but by recent experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a really kind of interesting deep dive on your mindsets during these bits, which I know you've just released a video which was sort of similar to that, but it's good. Okay. Next, Appoh and I talked about finding a place for cash out in the context of any tournament grand final.
Like a cash out can definitely work at the end. I just I think like historically always the complication with it is like when it fully determines like an outcome or like has a massive impact on an outcome. Like if you were to do it like you play 2 or 3 games of cash out and then based on the points that you get, that is your positioning in the next format of 3v3. So if you get first, then it's like you would face fourth place. Sort of you get an advantage per se. Like I know these are top 4 teams, so they're the best, but it's like you're getting a bit of an advantage in the next format of 3v3s, and then it sort of goes down in this typical bracket.
I think the gripe that a lot of pros have with cash out in particular is the elimination aspect. Is that it shouldn't. It feels like a really bad way to exit a tournament. But
it really does.
If for instance third and fourth go then into a lower bracket 3 versus 3, then and from that point on it's 3 versus 3s and things, then it can feel a bit better because you remove the craziness of it. Like honestly, the ideal finals tournament has no cash out in it at all in terms of competitive integrity. But that's rubbish. That's not the finals, is it? So,
yeah, like identity and competitive integrity just don't really sort of mesh here.
Yeah, and I always think if people wanted a game that was like competitive, like completely balanced, completely competitive, they wouldn't be playing the finals. You know, they'd be playing CS or they'd be playing chess. You know, it's.
I mean, the randomness is fun. So yeah.
Cool. If you could change one thing about the finals esports, what would it be?
I mean, I feel like I have two for this. One is like based on like formatting. Like how we just touched on, I don't think that cash out should be a part of an elimination. Like I said before, I think it can help, position or categorize where you belong. Or I don't really mind the PHL system where it's like you're getting points based on your performance consistently over a season. I think, consistently getting top place is a good sign that you're a good player, and consistently placing at the bottom is typically a bad sign. Like you might get griefed out 1 or 2 games, but not every game. That's kind of like, at that point you're just coping. So I think that sort of would make sense. And the second thing is more just like a mentality thing. I think people just need to like get out of the whole like meta everything. I think people just need to play what they're good at and play to their strengths, and I think you'd see a lot better results. And even a lot of teams that do just like only play hard meta, when we are in a phase of the game, previously we were in phase of the game where it's like every team is running the exact same thing, and there were some teams that did phenomenally. They sort of stomped, they were like the top dogs. And now that we're sort of getting out of that, we have HLL becoming a meta, we have HML becoming a meta. You have, my team not running a medium but having double heavy, Gugun. Like, we're just playing into our strengths, and we're trying to basically work and find a way to like make the like shape the game to our strengths versus trying to shape ourselves to the strengths of what we would consider the meta. And I feel like that's hindered a lot of teams because I know some players are very good at specific things, but they shy away from it because they're like, no, I need to play the meta. I need to play what's quote unquote good. And I don't think we're really in that stage anymore.
At this point in time, Appoh hadn't looked in too much detail at the upcoming TGM Online series format yet, so we went through some of it together. If you want to hear his full thoughts on it, he recently released a great video talking through some of it, but here I got to see his initial reactions to it. We started with the promotion format, which is being used at various points such as the top 16 and top 8 of the online series for each region, which strongly resemble the in-game ranked format. I think it addresses the issue of having emphasis placed on first in a cash-out game, which is essentially like just a different game mode.
Yeah,
regular
it really
cash-out.
is. Yeah.
That was always my issue with watching like first, second, third, fourth cash-out, is that this isn't it's just a different game mode. Right, It's like
and
everyone's
it makes
playing with
it
different
really
objectives.
Weird for viewers too, right?
Yeah.
Like if I watch,
that's not what I play,
Yeah, like I watched League of Legends like competitive, right? It's like when I'm watching pros play versus like me regularly playing, it's the same logic. It's just they're doing it at a better level. Whereas like here, for a regular player, like some shit just doesn't make sense. And I feel like that's always been like a very big problem for the esports scene as a whole, versus just like if we're taking out like pro player perspective, because I mean obviously we're gonna have complaints no matter what. But from a viewer point, like I remember when I was, just a coach or just watching, there was plenty of times where I just like I didn't even care to watch it because I knew the game was just like the format made some of these games feel really dumb. And even like TGM 25, like the top 4 spot, like those games I hated watching the most because it was like these are meant to be like the most important sort of like this is the build up to the end, right? We're about to like decide who the winner is. And some of the macro decisions and some of like the weird decisions that some of the teams made were just really frustrating. And it was just like very anticlimactic for a grand final of like the grand majors.
Yeah. Well, on that note, they also reveal the throne format in this, which it's an improvement, is what I'll say. We then took a quick look at the throne format, and I got Appoh's first reaction to that. So if you win,
Right, they just stay on the throne and
they
wait for
stay
the
on
next challenger.
Exactly.
Oh no.
So what that means is that you basically have to escape cash out. But if you're good enough to win a cash out game and then win the 3v3, then
Was this like a discussion they had with pros? Because I don't know who would like, what kind of pro would greenlight this? Because one of the bigger issues that we heard from pros, like when I was backstage, was the downtime, like having to wait, even if it's like a couple minutes or whatever. But it's like when you're playing and then consistently playing, you can like stay warm by like having to sit back and wait. Like that's kind of like, I don't know, that can be very annoying.
it's an interesting
And
one,
also
that,
like
yeah.
I don't know, I still don't really like this format. Like I feel like there's still like a lot of incentive for griefing, especially once you get to what's it called, like specific
higher
amount
points.
of stars. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously you want to grief out the team that has more points, but then that also means that if you're griefing out the people that have more points, that means that you're griefing out a challenger that is more worthy to actually beat them, which means that getting to that spot initially, and if you win, you have a very like clean, like there's a very good chance that the first challenger is going to get all 3 points right away.
Potentially,
because the team that's very good, they're going to be trying to like grief them out, right? Like it's first place that goes to the right, like the first place in the cash out goes to the challenging spot, right?
Yeah. The first place in this
Yeah, so
cash
like
out
in this world, like the
gets
Vogues is the sitting on the throne or whatever, and then you have
Yeah.
a challenger, and then the challenger is the first place in the next cash out.
the challenger is the first place in the next cash out and then 3v3.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
the good teams are like if they get griefed out, like they know. Oh god, it's gonna be so weird. Like everyone's obviously gonna want to play for themselves, but there's gonna be times where it's like, well, this
Yeah.
person already has some stars, so let's grief them out.
I
But
think
realistically, it's like you should by not letting the good teams in, then the person on the throne is gonna get a very easy win. It was kind of like during TGM when Envy ended up like the two EU teams were like griefing each other out so much, and then one of them ended up their macro is like really weird, and even like NA, like a Nightmare made some weird fucking fumbles with like plugging boxes and stuff, but like it was just Envy bullying whoever was in the hot seat over and over again, and like the teams that were like potentially worthy of getting it were just getting griefed, and then they just kind of got like an easy buy. Like after Envy faced Secret,
it was SSG.
all of us knew it was over.
Is it Nightmare?
Oh
Nightmare,
yeah.
Nightmare
Sorry. I'm used to the current teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nightmare were the ones that won, but yeah, you're right.
Correct. Yes. Nightmare and SSG. Yeah.
It's an interesting one because I feel as though the redeeming factor of this format over the previous one is that the biggest threat is the team that's actually sitting on the throne. So there's no way of griefing them out of their position.
No, but that means that like it just means that like the teams that are like because in a top 4, there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that probably aren't going to be good enough to beat the
probably.
person.
And this is a top 5 as well. This is a top 5 essentially that's in the grand final. Yeah. It's just that the 5th team has
means
a
that
slight
there's
disadvantage.
going to be a team that is probably it was the same with like EU versus like NA. Like I think, like I said, once it was Team Secret versus was it Nightmare? Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was. Nightmare. A lot of us in the backstage, we already knew it was over, and we just went to the front to go and celebrate, like when the game started, because we already knew it was over at that point. It was
they were so on top of it in 3 years.
Yeah, and Team Secret just wasn't like, I don't know, EU just wasn't as good as NA. I don't know if they are now, but like at TGM they were just
nobody
kind of
was as good as Nightmare because they walked over SSG in the 3s as well twice.
They did,
yeah. Like it was a complete whitewash, that final. We were ready for that final to last like twice as long as it did because we'd had PHL finals that ran on the same format do exactly that, where the macro was like perfectly controlled, and it was Nightmare that got griefed out. Like Nightmare had 4 points for so long.
That was when
it was NA. Nightmare had 4 points
old
for the whole time.
Right? Whatever their name was before.
No,
Or
it
was it? Were
was
they KCP at
it
that point?
was it was T-Mill's
Because Slothy's
team. It
team
was
won.
their
It
whatever
was Slothy
team.
and T-Mills.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't
that's
remember if it was.
KCP now. That's KCP now, but I don't think that was their name at the time. I think it might have been
Yeah,
Fire Strays.
it was Fire Strays. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
but
they crept up slowly and eventually then beat Nightmare in the 3 versus 3.
and the reason was because like a
Well,
lot of
not
those
no, it wasn't
teams
Nightmare. It was someone
were
else.
like decent at macro, so it was like
Yeah,
they were basically trying to grief out the top team, and obviously,
yeah.
Nightmare was getting hella griefed over
The
and over
funny thing,
again because they
because
thought
yeah,
Fire Strays would be easy, and they
those
weren't.
were the best teams in North America, which was a stronger lobby than
Hmm.
the TGM26 Grand Final. I would argue because I don't think
I
Fnatic and
agree.
Secret step up to Fire Strays. I think Fire Strays is a
No,
better team. So
yeah.
yeah, it was a really interesting one that, but it shone a spotlight on how badly it can go.
Hmm.
And so then
But it is just target griefing over and over again, and it's
it
like
is, but like
formats like this always lead to that.
the thing is that like the Nightmare absolutely deserved to win that grand final because they got through on that final round despite a load of grief against them. Like they had to fight against third parties every single box that
Hmm.
they succeeded with, and then SSG
Yeah.
fucked it and plugged the final and doubled the last one. But like either way,
Yes.
Nightmare they pulled off some mad clutches. They won the cash out that they absolutely shouldn't have. So like if you can kind of beat the grief, then that's a sign of a really, really good team. But it's also it's a strange one.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that, but it is like, like I said, the hurdle of beating grief is just massive in pro play. Like
Yeah.
top four teams, like if you're gonna get griefed, they know what they're doing. They know exactly how to grief you, and it's very difficult to get around that. And I think like I would still argue this to this day, but like TGM 25, like if it was all NA teams, it would have been more competitive. Like the EU teams, like EU's macro for cash out is like really bad, and I think it's because they base it off of like Carnifex's team. Carnifex has fantastic macro for ranked, but then when it comes to like if there is a mix between like NA and EU and stuff, like that macro just doesn't really work anymore. When you're like focusing on a lot of third parties, when people know how to deal with third parties, it's just not as good. And like EU is constantly going for third parties, trying to like quote unquote grief other teams, whereas like NA is typically like they just want to play statistically like the best that they can, and like they only really third party when it makes logical sense.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've found.
Well, you've been employing that yourself as well. Like it's clear when you see like there's a third party, like no, we want to go take that fair 3v3 because that plays to us, especially for your team because it really plays to your strengths to have that knowledge
to a
of the
degree. Like it, I mean, I don't know if you had noticed. Oh yeah, you were the one.
I was observing,
spectating on the Cis Horizon one. Like I remember the casters being a little bit confused on why we left the third party to go to the other point, and I made that macro call because when we had spawned in, we were closer to the one that was near the building, but they had winched it out, and that doesn't play into our strengths.
Yeah,
and it was like
indoors,
the other one's in a building. Like let's go to the one that's in the building. The other team's dead. Like by the time we get there, their spawn is probably going to be on the other side of the map.
I
so
know
we should get our 3v3s.
I know the feeling so well, but from a very different perspective, having mained MGL32 for the whole of Season 9. I'm like, no, guys, please can we go to the building objective and not the one in the park where there's terrain that just ruins my weapon. Like, I aim it here, it ends up over there. Like, I can't play in parks.
So, for us, it was purely just like, let's play the cash out that caters to our strengths. And like, even though macro-wise, it's like, defeating this team, maybe we get first place. It's like there's still a chance that we can fight for third place, or sorry, first place, because the money was like really tight. It would have been a kill race, versus going to the other one where it's like, I think the money was close enough that the other team could have went to the other point and it still would have been close to a kill race. So realistically, our call was purely just what cash out is easier for us, and we try to avoid third parties. Like most of the time, we will avoid third parties because the way that I view it, like. I'm a lot more like analytical and like statistical about this stuff. Like especially having coached for so long, like I care a lot about this stuff. Is like if I'm going for a third party, like just base math right there, it's a 33% chance if there's three teams that are fighting for a cash out versus a 50% chance. So it's like that already is sort of like an initial thought. Then it's like, okay, well, how low are people? Is someone going to die? If like a full team wipes, we don't know when that's going to happen. If there's two teams there, we don't know when that wipe is going to happen. So we're gambling on waiting for the moment when that team wipes to then go in for it.
Yeah.
And is it going to be a 50-50, or is it going to be maybe we have a 60% chance because one of them is like a little bit low on HP, or is it going to be like a 99% chance because there's only one person left and they're 1 HP and they're sitting there reviving standing still? Like we don't, it's too much of a gamble. So I'd rather just go for the 50-50 where I'm a little bit more confident almost every single time.
The best teams at third partying are equal parts incredible at timing, but also incredibly lucky, because you are entirely relying on a specific outcome from the fight between the two parties that you're engaging. Like you can't, if there was a complete washout and you know there's 3 full HP members on one team that are just ready to engage again, then you've gained little to like next to nothing by trying a third party on that. So yeah, it's a really difficult art.
I feel like EU digs to third party a lot. It's the point where it's like
specifically as well, like the X Alliance rods, like 5 Fears, they're really good at it. Almost every vault fight, you see them just pop up, and it's like, oh, yep, they just won the vault fight because they went and third partied it. Like, no one expects it still. I don't know why. Like, it's
that's the thing is, like, I think we do in NA, like we will call that out early. Like, if we notice on the other side of the map that, you know, money wise, you can tell there was no fight. We're already concerned.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? Like, we can look and see, like, okay, all they have is 1,000 and the other team's at 0. They're probably trying to third party. And there will be times where I will make the call to just say, let's leave and just go to the other point. I'm not even going to give them this third party. Like, it's a waste of our time. We already know that this is bad. And then when I do that, that now means that the person that went for the third party is also fucking themselves. But it's like, I'm not going to fuck myself just to let them have it. I'd rather just, you know, okay, I'll take the little hit versus the big hit is kind of like where I'm at. Like, I'm always looking for whatever is the best statistical advantage. Like, I know when it comes to like the Goo Boys in general, it's not like we're a, you know, top Kovacs player. We're not like insanely cracked.
You've got a money ball.
We're just smart.
You've got a money ball. You've got to play
smart.
Percentages. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's lots of things you said today that really like challenge my opinions on things as well. So I'm going to have to do a second pass of my script, which I expected once I get all of these sort of opinions in from different people, and say like, you know, I think this, but actually some pros are like very much the opposite. Yeah, that was cool. I'm really glad to chat to you, Appoh. It was awesome.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
I like your, I like that the mic shield matches the Osprey shirt as well. Very.
Yeah, I mean, my whole branding is like yellow and black, so I had to get a yellow windscreen or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Cool filter.